Hey guys, Samurai here, back again with another video, and a franchise I love is Cardfight Vanguard. I don't usually talk about it here much on the channel because my channel is Pokemon based. However, I've seen a trend of YouTubers making their favorite anime characters have full Pokemon teams. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I gave one of the characters from Cardfight Vanguard a full Pokemon team? Well, teams, as he changes decks a lot, and there's multiple iterations of the character. The character I'm of course talking about is Aichi. He's the first main character of the Cardfight Vanguard anime series, and one of the most prevalent characters in the lore. Today I'll be giving him teams based on his pre-reboot self. Those who have watched Cardfight Vanguard pre-reboot know that Aichi has had many alliterations and changed his deck multiple times. So that's why he gets his own video, because of how many times he changed his deck, thus his team would change multiple times. So without any further ado, let's get started on Aichi Sendo's full teams. So at the start of the series, Aichi starts off by using Royal Paladin. He's arguably at his most iconic here, so let's give him a team based on what he would naturally use here. So for his starter, I'm going with Samurott. Now there was a lot of options for his starter. I decided to go with Samurott because it has the same color scheme as a lot of Royal Paladins, along with its sword type moves and its dex entry talking about how much of a formidable opponent it is. It kind of reminds me of Blaster Blade, so I think it would be a good fit for Aichi. Next on up we have Corviknight, and I think the reason speaks for itself. It's literally Corviknight, Paladin. Knights are paladins, it just makes sense. Not to mention its steel type, which I feel like Aichi would definitely specialize in given the nature. Next up we have Gallade. Now Gallade is purely here based on its dex entries on how it acts. It acts very similar to a knight in medieval times with its chivalry and with a lot of its fighting style. Not to mention this also reminds me of Blaster Blade and Gans a lot with how solitary Gallade can be. I feel like it's a good fit for Aichi and gives him a possible Mega Evolution for future teams. Next on up we have Lucario. Lucario is also here due to Aichi's character. Aichi has Psyqualia, which is basically psychic powers to those who haven't watched Cardfight Vanguard, but for those who have, you already know what I'm talking about. Psyqualia can be very similar traits to Aura, allowing you to connect with your cards or your Pokemon in a way that only you can. Lucario is the Pokemon that specializes in Aura, so I feel like it's a good fit too. Not to mention it's blue, and it kind of reminds me of Wingull. Next up we have Lycanroc. Aichi's famous for using multiple dogs in his team, not just Wingull. He uses Bartgall, Honegall, and Fulgull multiple times, and it's pretty iconic with him, so giving him a dog-based Pokemon just fits here. And for his last Pokemon, this kinda seems out of place, but we're using Cobalion. Cobalion is made to be a reference to both Gancelot and Alfred. Not to mention, Cobalion already fights for what's right, is the leader of the Swords of Justice, similar to the way Alfred is the leader of the Royal Paladin, and it just looks very dignified. I feel like it would be a great fit for Aichi's team, and a good legendary to give him. Now, in the middle of the Cardfight Vanguard original anime run, as many of you know, Aichi changes his deck to Shadow Paladin. Due to Psyqualia taking him over and him just becoming an overall douchebag, I guess. But yeah, he changes his deck, so I figured that his team would change for the most part as well. This being Hisuian Samurott this time. Hisuian Samurott is noted to do anything to win, and is generally the opposite of the Samurott we see in the usual games. This fits perfectly with Psyqualia Aichi, I feel. Corviknight because it's still Shadow Paladin, so the Knight aspect still stays. Bisharp works because it kind of works as a kind of edgier Gallade, just by the way it looks and by the way it moves. Not to mention multiple Bisharp dex entries talk about how it's a commanding leader, leading a bunch of Pawniards. Next up we have Zoroark. Zoroark is purely here just because it's an edgier version of Lucario. I think that's what they were kind of betting on too. Lycanroc is here because, again, Aichi uses a lot of dogs and he uses Dornbow and Fullbow in his decks along with the second half of Season 1. And finally, for the legendary, we have Kyurem Black. Now, I'm using Kyurem Black here because it's the most similar Pokemon to Phantom Blaster Dragon without being Zekrom, as I have something else planned for Zekrom for the different character if this video does well. Now, as you know, by the end of the series, Aichi changes his deck again. He goes back to Royal Paladin near the end of the series. Aichi goes to Royal Paladin due to having a fight with Kai and changing his mentality again. However, he still keeps one Shadow Paladin in his deck, so his team would change only by a bit. He would keep Samurott, Corviknight, Gallade, along with Bisharp, Lucario, and Lycanroc. There is no legendary on this team, as I felt like putting a legendary wouldn't really help, as there's no legendary that truly embodies both light and dark. Yeah, I know Kyurem exists, but Kyurem doesn't exist both light and dark. It's truth and ideal, so it's not the same thing. Now we move on to one of my personal favorite series, Asia Circuit. As we know in the Asia Circuit saga, Aichi changes his deck to Gold Paladin due to losing the Royal and Shadow Paladins. Now Aichi's team here is going to be a bit different. I decided to go with Pokemon that are artistically different from Royal Paladin while at the same time feeling the same. I went with Sceptile instead of Samurott. It's still a double-bladed Pokemon, and while it isn't very disciplined or its dex entry shows about how it acts, it still has that blade-based moveset that Samurott had. Next up, we had Braviary. Now, Braviary is a gold paladin through and through, if I have to say anything. Its dex entries talk about how it cares for its friends, and how it goes into battles for its friends. So I figured, yeah, this is definitely an Aichi Pokemon and a gold paladin Pokemon, if I've ever seen one. Next up, we have Pyroar. Now, Pyroar is made to reference Incandescent Lion Blonde Ezel. It's the lion Pokemon, and I know a lot of people are going to say, shouldn't it have been in the Royal Paladin team because it's the Royal Pokemon? And while yeah, that is true, I felt like this was too much of an on-the-nose reference not to go off of. Next up we have Cinderace. Now Cinderace, another fire type and another starter, is made to reference Pellinor and the multiple rabbits he has on this team. Cinderace is the only rabbit Pokemon that I can really think fitting Aichi's battle style, not to mention I like Cinderace and everybody else likes Cinderace. I felt like it's a good fit. Eevee. Eevee is a friendship-based Pokemon. I feel like Aichi would eventually catch an Eevee. He's definitely the type of person to have one. And for his last legendary, it's Zeraora. Now Zeraora is here to reference the basic animal theme that the Gold Paladins were going for, not to mention, it just looks cool and I feel like it fits with Aichi's theme in Season 2 at least. Next up we have Aichi from the Link Joker saga, arguably his most iconic era. Now for this one, Aichi uses the Royal Paladin units, but they're under the Gold Paladin name under Liberator, so this will be a fun hodgepodge of the first two teams. This being Samurott, his starter of course, Lucario returning due to Aichi Cyqualia kind of playing a big role here, Gallade being a reference to both Blaster Blade, Alfred, and Gancelot this time, not to mention having an Aegislash as Aichi changed up his units a bit, and I feel like Aegislash is a really good fit here. He keeps the Eevee from Season 2, as this is more Pokemon related, as I feel like he would keep Eevee, and this being Latios, his last Pokemon. Latios is a fairly intelligent Pokemon, as a lot of the sex entry says, and it likes to fight people to help protect others. I feel like Aichi and Latios fit a lot really. And then next up we have Legion Mate. Now in Legion Mate, Aichi kinda gets taken over by Link Joker. I haven't completely finished Legion Mate. I've watched it multiple times, but I still don't really get it. However, I got the general gist, and I think I know what team to give him for this. So for his starter, we clearly have Hisui and Samurott, doing whatever it takes to win, and it just being a darker reflection of Samurott. Next up we have Hydreigon, this Pokemon being Savage, along with it using moves like Outrage and just destroying everything around it, very similar to the Link Joker with other planets before Cray. I feel like it fits here. Next up we have Spiritomb. Now Spiritomb is a ghost type known for possessing people, even in the recent episodes of the anime where it possessed Ash for a short time. Since Aichi sort of possessed her, I kind of feel like it fits, not to mention Spiritomb is a pretty cool Pokemon. We have Aegislash up next. We're keeping Aegislash as I feel like Aegislash will take over Aichi, as we know that in its dex entry, while it was famous for crowning kings, one of its pre-evolutions has the dex entry of whenever somebody touches its hilt, it will eventually possess that person. This is what probably happened to Aichi, at least this time. Eevee's still here because again I feel like Aichi would still keep Eevee the same way he still kept Samurott. It would just be reversed if anything. And lastly, Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres is known as the Malevolent Pokemon. This basically just meaning evil, and it shares the Link Joker color scheme. I feel like it's too good not to fit here. And finally, for Aichi's last team, this is the team we see him with in G-Next and in GZ. This will be Samurott, of course, G-Max Corviknight due to traveling more of the world, or in this case more Pokemon regions like Galar, Mega Gallade, this referencing Aichi being able to use Stride, Lycanroc because Aichi still keeps his dogs, Eevee staying the same as it always was. I was thinking of evolving it in Espeon, but then I realized if there was ever to be a Steel-type evolution, we could just change it in order to that. And finally, Reshiram, this being Aichi finally using Sting Saver and keeping it as a mainstay of his team, along with other dragons like Arc Saver and Soul Saver respectively, finally becoming the strongest version of himself. And that's the end of the video. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it and agreed with my teams. If there are any teams that you would change, would you guys like me to cover other characters like Renkai or Leon? I would be glad to cover it, maybe every once a month or so. Now I know this video isn't my usual content and we'll get back to my usual content next week, but thanks for watching the video. Samurai out.